And from United Healthcare, with a network of over 120 hospitals and nearly 40,000 physicians across the DC region, United Healthcare is proud to provide the care you need when you need it. That's why United Healthcare has been working to make the healthcare system work better for you, making your care more coordinated, more personal, and easier to access. At United Healthcare, your care is non-negotiable. Learn more at uhc.com/Hopkins/FAQs. Today on CityCast DC, we're talking about a federal police shooting and a potential cover-up. We're talking about what happens in DC as SNAP benefits dry up, plus your DC-specific Halloween getups. And in a members-only fourth segment, we'll get into Donald Trump's firing of an obscure planning commission and what it means for DC and not just for the White House ballroom. I'm here with CityCast's Julia Caron and NBC4's Mark Seagraves. Today is Friday, October 31st, Halloween. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC's talking about. Hey, Julia.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me back.
Our pleasure. And that sound we hear, I think, is your windshield wipers, because you're in a car.
I am hands-free, driving in the safest possible manner I can in this downpour.
To be clear, not the first time Seagraves has joined us for a car for urgent news. What a guy. Really the best, the GOAT.
So, Mark, I was really struck by this this report in the Post about an incident where a federal law enforcement person, part of this surge that Trump has pushed into D.C. that the mayor is cooperating with, fired their weapon into a car driven by an unarmed black man. The shooting managed to not appear in the police report and in the police's public communications about this. And, look, nothing happened. Nobody was hit. But, that is the sort of incident that could lead to enormous blowups. And it also, the not sharing body cam footage, the stuff like that, strikes me as, as a pretty dangerous behavior pattern. I don't know if I'm overreacting. What do you think?
Mike, you're not overreacting. This incident is the absolute quintessential illustration of how this federal surge on the turn of a dime could go very, very badly. And as you said, we're very fortunate that nobody was injured, that Mr. Brown was not injured. But one of those bullets here, the gentleman who was pulled over, 33-year-old Philip Brown, one of the bullets, and at least 3 shots were fired into the into the driver's side window of his car. 2 of them went into the passenger seat at chest level, and at least one of the bullets pierced the collar of Mr. Brown's jacket, right? So
my God.
That's how close he came to being killed by this ICE agent, this HSI agent, who was on the streets of DC with the federal surge. There's a lot to unpack here, and so I will just
can we unpack by starting from the beginning? Like where was this? When was this? What happened?
Sure. This is Benning Road, 3900 block of Benning Road. This is October 17th, about 8:00 in the evening. DC police are on patrol, as they are every single day, in a caravan with federal agents who are part of the surge. And in this case, at least some of the federal agents were from Homeland Security Investigations. That's the HSI logo that you see on the back of these jackets. And they are there, as Mayor Bowser has said weeks ago, primarily for immigration enforcement, and she wants them out of the task force. So they're driving down Benning Road. They see Mr. Brown, and according to the police report and the charging documents, Mr. Brown has a very dark tinted windows. and no front license plate on his vehicle. So they attempt to pull him over for that traffic infraction. According to police, they say Mr. Brown fled. Now, his attorneys paint a different picture, saying there was traffic. He was just trying to get to a safe place to pull over. But he eventually does pull over, doesn't come to a complete stop. Again, according to police, driving very, very slowly. Police say he hit another vehicle, rear-ended another vehicle, but there's no evidence of that, no photographic evidence of damage to either car. And at this point, DC police, before they even have him pulled over, hand the pursuit over to the federal agents.
Why did they do that? This was not evidently.
Was that allowed?
That may have been, now I'm speculating, but it's reasonable to assume that these federal agents have different protocols when it comes to vehicle pursuits than DC police have. They have very strict protocol for pursuits. And so they would not be allowed on their own without permission from the supervisor of DC police to initiate any kind of pursuit for a traffic stop. But the feds play by their own rules. Anyway, there was no real pursuit. He comes to a stop. One of the federal agents gets out of their vehicle, and according to an ICE statement that said that the officer feared for his life, that he believed that Mr. Brown was trying to run over another officer at the scene, and he discharged his weapon several times. And that's how we got to the shooting. That was the incident. They subsequently arrested Mr. Brown, charged him with fleeing a scene and a collision. I believe this was on a Friday. So he had to spend several nights in jail before he appeared before a judge on Monday morning. As soon as he appeared before a judge, they dropped the charges, and he was a free man. And he had no prior, as far as we can tell, no prior criminal record, and he was unarmed in the vehicle.
Can I ask a couple questions? One, if he hit this car and there's no photographic evidence, is that a thing that police on the scene would ordinarily gather? They would take a picture of the damage or something?
Yes.
Okay. Two, if this Homeland Security Investigations officer who has not been named, as far as I know, feared for his life, that would imply that the car was coming at him. Why did the shots go through the passenger window then?
So to clarify both those questions, one, yes, there should have been evidence gathered, and we don't know if there was evidence gathered. There may have been pictures taken. We just don't know. The case never got to the point where they presented any evidence. But there was some testimony, which obviously was the big key to this that we'll get to. But certainly when a law enforcement officer discharges their weapon, there is a lot of evidence gathered, shell casings, photographic evidence. And we don't know how much, if any, of that evidence was gathered at the time of this. But the federal agent said that there was a second officer he didn't fear that he was actually going to be hit himself. He feared that a second officer who was in the line of the vehicle was going to be hit and injured. And so that's why they went through the driver's window.
And then three, if they thought that he had committed a crime, and they arrested him for committing a crime, nothing changed over the weekend. Why did they suddenly drop everything?
For just lack of evidence. I mean, again, so at this point, we'll get into the testimony. So the arresting officer, a DC police officer who wrote the police report, testified at the hearing, the preliminary hearing. And the issue of the shots fired came up, and the officer testified, and there was no indication, and you mentioned there was no indication of shots fired in the publicly available police report called a 251. But it's not just an act of omission, because on that form, there is a box. There are several boxes you check. What was the weather? Daytime, nighttime, visibility, time of day, all these kind of forms that you fill out and boxes you check. And one of the boxes on these forms asks the questions, shots fired, yes or no. And on this report, the officer checked no under shots fired. So it's not just that the officer omitted any mention of the fact that the law enforcement fired at this unarmed man. They went so far as to check the box for no shots were fired, which could be argued that that was actually inaccurate, false information included in an official police report. In the charging document, the Gerstein, which is a much more detailed narrative of the incident, there is also no mention whatsoever of shots fired or of any officers fearing for their lives or being in danger. When the police officer who wrote this report was questioned about that under oath at the preliminary hearing, he testified, again, under oath, the DC police officer testified that he was told by his superior not to include it in the report. And so that is the real thrust of this cover-up allegation that's being levied by activists and by Mr. Brown's attorneys.
And to be clear, his superior in this case would be that HSI officer?
Negative, no. It would be a DC police officer.
Okay.
So, and we don't know who that is. We don't know if it was a commander, a lieutenant, the chief of police. We don't know where in the chain of command that order came from. And DC police and the mayor are not answering any questions about that part of this incident.
Okay, can I just, because I think we should probably talk about the big picture here. You asked the mayor and they said, sorry, we're not going to talk about this. Did they say any reason why?
No. So the police initially put out a statement saying that the officer-involved shooting was being investigated by DC Police Internal Affairs, who are responsible for investigating any use of force by any law enforcement agency in the District of Columbia. So this is routine that DC Police Internal Affairs would catch this case and would investigate this. So they said that it is being investigated and that the U.S. Attorney was conducting a parallel investigation. Now, the U.S. Attorney's Office told me that they don't comment on open investigations, but it is up to DC Police to refer to them for further investigation. And we don't know if that referral has been made, but it's important to note that this investigation the police are doing only pertains to the shooting. They are not, as far as I know, the last time I asked, they are not investigating why this officer did not include the mention of the shooting in his report. I asked Mayor Bowser about this Wednesday in what became a very confrontational back and forth, which is really what press conferences are becoming like with the mayor these days. She had lost a lot of patience with the press. And myself and the Washington Post reporter, Megan Flynn, pushed the mayor on this case to get some kind of comment. And she absolutely refused to comment other than to say that it was under internal investigation.
So she has made a big point of talking about cooperating with the Trump administration in their law enforcement efforts here, the use of federal forces on things. I think a lot of people have sort of given her a pass, that she's in a tough spot. She's a bad hand to play, that she does not have the sort of full independent status of someone who's part of a state. Do you think this changes the amount of grace people give her? And then two, again, if somebody, no criminal record, unarmed, had wound up dead, that's the kind of thing that leads to riots, to disturbances, to like a lot of anger, days of protest. Based on what you're seeing with the administration, with the tone, with the sort of mood of the city right now, how do you think that would have gone?
You are not exaggerating when you say that if this had been a fatal shooting of an unarmed black man by a federal agent, that we would very likely have seen civil unrest in the streets of Washington, D.C. You can look in the past, even long before the federal surge years ago when, the young man was chased to his death on a motor scooter by police, and we had protests in the streets for days over that. And at some point, turned violent at 4D headquarters. And so something like this could have just ignited terrible situations and unrest in the city. I really believe the mayor is losing a lot of support. You're right that a lot of people had been giving her a pass, recognizing that she's not the mayor of Chicago. She's not the mayor of Los Angeles. She doesn't have a Democratic governor. They don't control their own destiny in Washington, D.C. D.C. has far more to lose than any other jurisdiction in the country. And a lot of people do realize the balance that she is working there. But here is what Mayor Bowser said to myself and Megan Flynn of the Washington Post on Wednesday. The mayor was at a ribbon cutting at a senior center in Chevy Chase, D.C., spitting literally on the D.C. Chevy Chase, Maryland line, right on Western Avenue there. And there were hundreds of people there to celebrate this opening of a new senior center. It was a beautiful event, and it was packed with residents of Chevy Chase, the probably least diverse and one of the most affluent neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. And at the same time this was going on, Brianne Nadeau's hearing on possible human rights violations related to the surge was happening, with more than 50 people testifying, and the vast majority of those people testifying about horrible things that happened to them or their loved ones, how they live in fear of ICE agents, and many of them very unhappy about Mayor Bowser and MPD and how she had been handling it. And when we pressed Mayor Bowser, I asked her directly, and I played this clip on TV Wednesday night. I asked her, what do you say to those residents who are fearful and so upset and do not approve of how you're handling this situation? And her answer to myself in the Washington Post was, she just left a crowd of more than 150 people, and not one of them complained about the ICE interventions. And they, in fact, told her they thanked her for doing a great job under a very pressing situation. To which I pushed back to her, in all due respect, Chevy Chase is not a hotbed of ICE enforcement right now, and not indicative of how the whole city is feeling. And she became very confrontational with myself and Megan Flynn from the Post, actually loudly proclaiming to everyone around, Mark Seagraves doesn't care about the opinion of people in Chevy Chase. And he said, you can just see how her patience is waning, right? I mean, she is really showing her frustration oftentimes at these press conferences, at the repeated questions. I repeatedly for weeks and months was asking her about, ICE and MPD cooperation. And, she pushed back, for so long, saying there was no cooperation, until finally she acknowledged that there was. And she said that HSI should be, off the task force. So, the tensions are high right now, and everybody is fatigued. And so it's a trying time for everyone involved. And I would just say, I can only imagine the stress and the pressures that Mayor Bowser is under right now, dealing with everything that she has to deal with, knowing that, as the president famously told Zelensky, in the Oval Office, you have no cards to play, right? And the mayor really doesn't have that many cards to play in this, and so much to lose. A lot of people are upset about the body-worn camera, and DC police are not violating protocol. The not releasing of the body-worn camera is not necessarily to the public. It's not necessarily an indication of a cover-up, because DC law does not require the police to release publicly body-worn camera video from federal agents, or even from an officer who happens to be at a police-involved shooting but isn't the actual shooter. DC law only requires that the body-worn camera from the officer actually fired the weapon, the DC police officer, be released. Now, the criminal defense attorneys never got a chance to look at that video either, but that is likely because the charges were dropped, so they then were not entitled to it. But his attorney, Mr. Brown's attorney, he has asked for the preservation of all that evidence.
All right, another thing that's going to be not making the mayor's life any easier, just to say nothing of the actually impacted people, is that we are now a few weeks into a federal shutdown, and as of tomorrow, November 1st, SNAP benefits, supplemental nutritional assistance program, what we used to call food stamps, are dried up. That hits, I've read, 1.6 million people in the DMV, 100 and some thousand in DC. The local governments are doing different things. Virginia is dipping into its funds to cover this. Maryland and DC are not. They are both part of a bunch of different states suing the administration over this. But in the immediate term, not only do we have a lot of federal employees who are out of work and without paychecks and hitting up food banks, that they never thought they'd hit up because they're middle-class employees. But now a lot of people who, even pre-shutdown, were among the truly disadvantaged, are finding themselves without even this sort of meager assistance. And this is going to have sort of a multiplicity of impacts around Washington. I'm wondering how this is, like, what are we in for in the next few weeks, assuming this isn't fixed?
Yeah, so this was another point of contention between myself and, again, I'll mention Megan Flynn from the Washington Post. We were the only two reporters who questioned the mayor on Wednesday, and we asked several times about whether DC would pick up the SNAP benefits. There had been a lot of talk internally. Sources were saying that the district was preparing for that. We had identified the funds. It is 85,000 households, 141,000 DC residents rely on food stamps. It's about a $300 supplement that they get every month. It costs the district about $29 million a month. Virginia is $37 million a week. So the mayor has not said, again, we asked the mayor point blank, what are you going to do? What do you tell residents, who are uncertain? Can you give them some comfort in knowing that, you'll step in should this not, be resolved by the first of the month? And the mayor refused to say, pointing to the lawsuit that you acknowledged was the DC government is part of. They have and we may know by Friday, when people are listening to this, that whether or not the judge granted the TRO, which was what they're in a hearing for on Thursday. And the mayor said she was not going to publicly announce a decision until after the judge had ruled on that TRO. Now, look, we know from Virginia that the money is supposed to hit your EBT card, which is like a debit card, on the first of every month. And Virginia has said that it won't, even though they're going to pick up the tab because of just the logistics of this. It'll be a 3-day lag time. So the people in Virginia won't get their money until the 3rd of November. So we don't know what's going to happen in DC, even if the mayor decides to pick up that $29 million. How soon they could pull the trigger and get it onto people's EBT card, if it would happen on Saturday, or if, like Virginia, it would be delayed into next week just for logistic purposes. And we don't know how far into the future DC can do this. This is the first time during a shutdown the Fed have not continued payments for SNAP. It's hard to imagine that these jurisdictions would be able to go more than just 1 month to supplement this. And as we've heard from leaders in Maryland, there's a question of, would they get paid back? Would they get reimbursed when the government reopens? All these are unknown. But as of Thursday morning, the mayor had not said one way or another what her plan to do is. But again, it's 141,000 DC residents who rely on that money.
Yeah. So one of the things, and this is connected, I promise. One of the things I did growing up was we had service requirements at my high school, and I served at the Capital Area Food Bank for folks who maybe needed food, stuff like that, donated. Does DC, Maryland, Virginia, etc. list any of those as like resources? Have the food banks said anything about like they're in solid shape, they need donations, anything like that?
Absolutely. The food banks have been more than vocal about saying how they just can't keep up with demand. That, when you have the furlough of federal workers, right, that put an incredible amount of pressure on these food banks for SNAP benefits, right? This is, currently they're having trouble keeping up with demand, and people's SNAP benefits haven't technically run out yet, right? It's not until the first of the month that they would be expecting to get that next supplement. And so the food banks are incredibly stressed and beyond their resources and are asking for donations. And you see not just food banks, but community groups, churches, restaurants, some of the food delivery apps are offering deep discounts and even free food. I'm going to forget which one, but one of them, one of those food delivery apps actually operates its own food bank and will deliver food to people. And so there is a tremendous, this is a double whammy for these social safety net organizations right now with the furlough of thousands and thousands and then layoffs coming of all these federal workers. At the same time, now you're going to just get millions of people across the country in risk of losing their food benefits.
And just for anybody who wants to help, our newsletter, Hey DC, on Thursday had a write-up of food banks and places you can donate time, resources, food, or money to, because it's going to be a really rough time for a lot of our neighbors.
Hey, DC. With everything happening in the political world right now, I've got a chance for you to come together and dig deeper. Double Exposure Investigative Film Festival, where investigative journalism meets cutting-edge documentary, is happening Thursday, October 30th through Sunday, November 2nd, right here in DC. This year's lineup explores how truth, trust, and power are being reshaped in real time. There's the U.S. premiere of Eugene Jarecki's Golden Globe-winning deep dive into WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange called The $6 Billion Man, and Cover Up, the new film from Oscar winner Laura Poitras and Emmy winner Mark Obenhaus, along with 23 more film premieres never before seen in Washington. Plus, there's panels and workshops with the journalists and filmmakers behind the films. In a moment when facts and narratives are constantly shifting, Double Exposure is a place to gather and discover, to question and connect. Catch the full lineup and get your tickets at dxfest.com. That's dxfest.com.
All right, it's Halloween, and one of DC's favorite pastimes is nerding out with really uncool, high-concept Halloween costumes. And our colleague Kayla wrote up a bunch this week, and I've know from my own just walking around town experience with the lawn decor and stuff, Sandwich Guy is going to be a big theme of Halloween, and that is not nerdy nor high concept, I don't think.
No, it's not. I mean, all you need is a pink polo and a fake sandwich. So
A real sandwich.
A real sandwich, maybe. Maybe you go to Jersey Mike's. Maybe you go to Subway. I don't know. Who's to say? Get a real sando. Here's what I do know. I'm in my 30s. It's a Friday. I'm going out. I have like a leopard onesie I wear all the time when I do this thing because it's easy. I do whatever, it's fine. If you want to be a little bit more like with it in DC, I see people in DC themed costumes all the time. I had a text from my cousin who's from California, who's like working on the Hill, who sent me a text that said, what do you mean you're dressed as the Ag Bill? And it's like a guy in overalls and just like
people,
all that stuff.
no.
I know. But I thought it was funny. Kayla has more DC specific ones. So let me lay out some that she recommends that you could go as. Subway Sandwich Guy is obviously number one. I don't know how many of you have pink polos lying around. But, who's to say? You could go as a lanternfly, the bugs that we did a whole FNR segment about. I don't know, maybe someone goes as a shoe, could be a couple's costume and someone gets to step on you. I don't know, that could be fun. You could go as your Metro stop. I've seen that a couple of times.
How do you go as your Metro stop? The thing about the Metro is that it has a uniform architecture.
Yeah, I mean, it's all vibes. I don't know. Like, the L'Enfant one is like, it's French, but it's also like impossible to get out of. Maybe there's like this way, that way. I don't know. I don't know what I'd do for Cleveland Park. Just like, who's to say? Like, just wear red and say my station is like functioning. I don't know.
Secrets, what are you going as?
So I'm in my 60s and will be staying home in my leopard leotard and not going out. I will just quickly. Years ago, when Adrian Venti, his first term as mayor, his first week or two as mayor, on Halloween was a work day, and so I decided that I would put on a fedora, and I put a little press card in the hat band, like an old 1920s, reporter, and so that's all I did is I put this fedora on my head with a press card in my hat band, and I went to work that day. And I ended up interviewing the mayor at some event that day. Well, luckily for me, the Washington Post was at that event and took a photograph of the mayor with me standing over his shoulder in that stupid freaking hat, looking like a moron. And they used that picture for weeks. For weeks, anytime you ran a story about Adrian Fenty, there I was in that hat out of context. And so that was the last time, I believe, that I donned a costume for Halloween.
Here's the thing. Do you have that photo framed in your house somewhere? That's awesome. I actually really love that for you.
I actually sadly do, because I have such an enormous ego, have that picture somewhere. Yeah.
Incredible. All right. If there are other things you want to go as, if you want to go out, one thing that I think is an easy standby is just like a DC parking sign. It's like totally illegible. It's really easy to construct. Big fan of that. Some people are going as like Tony P. I don't know. You could go as the government shutdown, the destroyed East Wing. You could also go as the Union Station Roman Legionnaires, which is kind of cool. You could get like into a Roman getup. You could be a Roman soldier. That might be fun. Or you could just go to the purple line and never show up.
If you showed up as a quote unquote Union Station Roman Legionnaire, wouldn't you just show up as a Roman Legionnaire? I mean, it's
sure.
Or are other guests at your Halloween party going to be like, oh, you're the Union Station one?
I think you would just be a Roman Legionnaire. Although, I don't know. Deep cut. I don't know that I'll show up as a Legionnaire. I think we're just going to wear my leopard onesie and go get some candy, hang out.
Yeah, I think I'm against Halloween costumes that you have to explain to people.
Fair.
Like one of Kayla's suggestions, which I admire as food criticism, less so as a Halloween costume, was that you show up with like a bunch of boring food and some Juan lettuce and say you're the Wonder Food Hall.
Oh my God. Oof, that's brutal. Mike, what are you going as someone who doesn't want to explain a costume to someone then?
I don't know. I my kids are kind of aged out. Maybe I've aged out. I don't know. All right. Well, I guess that is all we have to say about that. And from United Healthcare. At United Healthcare, your access to care is non-negotiable. With a network of more than 120 hospitals and nearly 40,000 physicians across the DC region, United Healthcare is proud to provide you the care you deserve. With open enrollment season here, you can trust that United Healthcare is working to ensure you can access the care you need, when you need, where you need it. Learn more about United Healthcare's commitment to patients at uhc.com/Hopkins/FAQs. And from United Healthcare. At United Healthcare, your access to care is non-negotiable. With a network of more than 120 hospitals and nearly 40,000 physicians across the DC region, United Healthcare is proud to provide you the care you deserve. With open enrollment season here, you can trust that United Healthcare is working to ensure that you can access the care you need, when you need, where you need it. Learn more about United Healthcare's commitment to patients at uhc.com/Hopkins/FAQs. I want to give a big thank you to our newest CityCast DC neighbors, JN and Nee Emil A. Thank you for your support. And today, paid subscribers get a bonus 4th roundup chat about Trump firing all the members of the Commission of Fine Arts. It's exciting stuff. It's actually really wild stuff. If you want to be sure you always get the full episode, become a member. Head to membership.citycast.fm and sign up. It's only $10 a month, and members get ad-free listening, exclusive members events, and an extra events newsletter every week. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. Mark, man, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Sorry about the windshield wipers. I appreciate you guys accommodating my commute.
All good, man.
Thank you, Julia. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mike.
And that's it for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Annie Reese, Julia Karen, Ash Durbin, and Matthew Rogers. Newsletter editor Kayla Cote-Stemmerman wrote our fabulous newsletter, Hey DC, this week, and our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer, from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan, with additional music from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. If you enjoyed the show, why don't you wear a CityCast DC Halloween costume? You can tell everyone about us. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.